Well, there you are. Thank you, American lady. She sounds hot. Anyways, right.
She does.
Let's pull it up, shall we? This is my attempt to be funny. It never works, but I'll try. Ladies and gentlemen of the class, please settle down and thank you for joining me today for today's lecture. I hope you all came prepared and ready to... Damn it, Leslie, put a fucking sock in it! Ready to learn all about a YouTuber and creator who I became a big fan of recently. I became aware of him, like I suspect many of you, through his coverage and video essays of the iconic American animated series South Park, and while he's clearly a fan of South Park and a fanatic, to say the least, given some of his most successful videos that he's produced surround the show and its history. Plus, he may have even given the creator some inspiration in a previous video of his, and we'll come to that. But he's amassed over 330,000 subscribers, well over 50 million views on his YouTube channel. In all his videos, you'll find a flourishing intellect, a witty yet thorny sense of humor, self-awareness, and an insightful look at not only the topics he covers, but slowly he's showing more and more of himself too, as he seeks to branch out and take root in other subjects, topics, and genres. Let's meet the man behind the bouquet, shall we? Please welcome Blooms. How are we doing, sir?
Wow, thank you. That was an incredible introduction. You said stuff about me that I didn't even know. That was great. I didn't. Is it really at 50 million views? That's kind of crazy. I didn't know that.
Do you know what? I was lying. It's not 50 million views. It's 51,410,832 as of the 18th of March. That's when I did the numbers. So it's probably gone up since then, because I watched about 20 of your videos again today to prep. So yeah, add 20 to that figure.
That's crazy.
Well, talk to me about that, because I got to ask, first of all, one of the questions that came up in a previous interview of yours was like, no, it wasn't. It was a Q&A that you did. And you were asked like, how has YouTube changed your life and what difference has it made and all the rest of it? And you kind of went, well, nothing really so far. It hasn't really made much difference. The question I had was, considering that's a considerably successful ascent given the number of videos and the time taken, did you expect it to change anything? Did you expect to go through the motions of like, holy shit, I've got 6 stadiums worth full of people that now follow me and watch virtually everything that I do? Or did you kind of go into it thinking, they're numbers on a screen, like I'll just do what I do? Like, what were your thoughts when you were going into it?
I think it is one of those things where at the beginning, I always felt like it would be kind of, well, because I always felt like it would be, I'd be a YouTuber eventually. Like I kind of knew that was going to be my path in life, which is weird whenever people are always like, what? Like whenever I say that, because I'm like, yeah, like most YouTubers are always going to be like, you know, I never expected this to happen. Like this is such a surprise, but like, for me, I always like kind of expected it. I didn't know what I was going to make videos about, but like I grew up watching YouTube, and it's like literally all I've watched since I was like probably 10 years old, pretty much, like is just YouTube and South Park pretty much. So I kind of always expected it, weirdly enough. And so for a long time when I first started YouTube, I set a goal at like 100,000 subscribers. That's when I'm like considered a real YouTuber, you know, like in my mind, that was like the limit to become a YouTuber pretty much. So then the whole time I'm like, that's all I'm ever thinking about is getting to 100,000. And then when I did eventually hit 100,000 and I got my plaque and everything, I just kind of had it, and I was like, okay, well now what? You know, like, I'm just like, it's like I expected it to be more than it was, and like I had all these grand expectations, and it's like achieving this big goal that I had, and then I just got it, and then I'm like, well, that was a little underwhelming because I've been expecting this for a long time, and now I guess on to the next goal, I guess. So I mean, it's always weird to have that many like subscribers and everything, and it's weird to think about, but most of the time in my real world, it doesn't really affect much, except for just meaning I have less time most of the time. So,
because one of the things that strikes me about your content, and I'm almost sorry to say that word content, because I think we'll get into reasons why later, that some of the nomenclature that applies to content creators, I don't think necessarily should apply to you, but we'll put that to one side for a second. You have an incredibly polished nature already, despite being young, and like I said, 59 videos to date on your main channel, right? I've done 650. Now,
holy shit.
I know, right? And of the 650, 649 have never been seen by anyone ever. So, like, I think interesting, the fact that people have naturally gravitated towards you, despite the fact that you haven't necessarily followed some of the norms that dictate how you be a successful YouTuber, i.e., you need to hammer current trends, you need to be fucking constant in your content uploads, you need to bombard with people with different types and on different platforms at different times, constantly and repetitively. Why don't you follow those trends, and why do you think people have gravitated towards you regardless?
I think that a lot of the inspiration that I have found for my like content over time has been through people that are kind of similar to that style, where people that have been successful in the similar style. People, I don't know if you're familiar with one of my favorite YouTubers. His name is Lemon, and he makes like documentary style videos as well. If you're not, I highly recommend you check it out because he makes like he's one of those YouTubers that'll just make you interested in whatever he's talking about, even if you have literally no interest in it. Like he's made a few videos about NASCAR that are like hour-and-a-half long documentaries about NASCAR, and I don't give a shit about NASCAR. Like who cares about NASCAR? But watching his videos about it, I'm like NASCAR is the coolest thing I've ever seen, you know? So like that's uh people like that where it's like they make those sort of documentary style videos and like long format videos that are like those like very I think they're on interesting topics, and they don't upload super often, but I think that even though the meta sort of right now, you know, people say you got to upload as much as possible, you got to do that kind of stuff. I agree that that's still the case, but I also think that the most important part, no matter what, is still the quality of what you're making, even if it's important to upload a lot. Like I think if I uploaded more, I would probably be more successful than I am now. But realistically, I like how much I upload, and I focus a lot more on quality whenever I do upload. So I still think it's very possible to become successful in that way. It's like a different thing. You definitely have to focus more on quality and make sure you're making very quality like content, but it's still very doable, I feel, to succeed in that format.
But why do you think people have gravitated to you specifically? Because I mean, I agree with you, by the way, that there's other channels that I follow religiously because they don't produce content every day. But when they upload, I gotta watch it. I gotta make sure it's in my diary to check. Why do you think people have? Because again, your Q&As have got a million questions in them when you do them, as infrequently as you do them. Again, you've done them on specific occasions when you've marked, milestones on your channel, and you've not been shy of questions. So people were clearly interested in not only the stuff you make, but you as a person. Like, if you had to put a pin in why you think you've been successful, or why people gravitate towards you, do you have any sort of inklings, or maybe in a somewhat kind of nice way, to be honest, is like, I have no idea, but I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing? Like, is it more of that? Like, what are your thoughts on it?
Well, I actually tweeted kind of something about this the other day in a similar light. I tweeted about Wendigoon, who I'm not sure if you're familiar with as well, but he makes like these like super long, like hours long, like videos, mainly about like horror type content and stuff. And I've been a fan of his channel forever, and I tweeted about the fact that like someone like him is not like he and charismatic, but he's not so funny and charismatic or anything that it's like you would look at him and be like, oh yeah, he's a natural at this or anything like that. And what I've come to realize in his appeal is that he's just very about what he talks about. Talking about, and it's like comes from a place of love of whatever he's talking about. And I feel to some degree that sort of applies to my channel as well, because I don't think I'm naturally the funniest or the most interesting like person, obviously, but I do think that I am very like everything that I talk about on my channel, I always am very passionate about. Like I love to talk about what I talk about. And I think that a lot of people see that kind of stuff. I know I do personally, like I said, and it's like infectious to hear someone talk about something that they're passionate about and that they like. And when they talk about it in a way that's like presented well to where they're trying to get you to understand why they like it so much, I think that that's kind of something that people enjoy. I think that's probably a big part of the reason, because other than that, I have no clue why people like me. I think it's like pretty. I don't think I do anything that other YouTubers don't do besides that, maybe. So yeah.
If I had to offer my insight, not that you asked for it, but one of the things that I've noticed watching your videos, especially now that you've kind of you've kind of developed over time a sense of humor that you've inserted into the videos as you go. And the reason it hits for me is because it really does hit the comedic element of the unexpected, or the subversion of expectation, because you're so laid back in your demeanor and your delivery. When a joke comes, it comes out of nowhere, even if it's telegraphed in a certain way. So it always lands in a way that feels like, oh, you cheeky sod. Like, tell me about how you've developed. Tell me how about, because again, in your earlier videos, I mean, there's definitely some humor that's, you know, derived from South Park and the subjects that you cover. But it seems increasingly like you want to insert more of your own humor and your own personality into your videos. Talk to me about how you've developed there.
Yeah, in my older videos, it's like when I didn't really know what I was doing and I was just making videos, I just like had like a thesis for a video, and I'd be like, okay, well, this is what we're going to talk about, and I'm just going to stick to that. But like as I've done more, I have wanted to insert like more creativity into it to some degree, where I'm like,
I mean, you
I
even
don't really
have
want to
running
just
jokes. Sorry
talk
to jump
about
in, but
South Park.
you have things like Pip. Pip is something that you go to the
Yeah.
well with occasionally, and I get that there are fans that maybe have Pip as some sort of cult figure or whatever. But your hate for him gives me life. I love it. But it's something that that's a piece of lore that you're building there. You know what I mean? That's something else that, like, I noticed that you've kind of sprinkled in occasionally to kind of keep some continuity with your videos, man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, with like that specifically, that's one of those things where I just noticed how much people like were mad at me for that, because it first started with the South Park ranking every episode video. And people were so mad that I didn't understand the episode, and like they're like, you're an idiot because it's about Great Expectations, the greatest literary piece ever written, all this stuff. And I'm just like, okay, well, if these people are this mad about this, then I think it would be pretty funny if I just leaned into this and made it like annoyed them as much as I can, pretty much, because clearly they're passionate about this. So then from then on, I just decided that that would be kind of the best path, is just keep making fun of Pip whenever I could, and just like push those people's buttons, because clearly they are easy to push. So that's where that came from, and it ended up being a very successful comedic like running joke. People talk about it in my comments all the time still, and I kind of not put it to rest. I still like joke about it very occasionally, but like with the video actually talking about Pip, I kind of try to like at least move past it a little bit, but it's definitely not gone. I'll still talk about it every now and then.
And it works, and it's very funny to me because, again, it's one of those things that because again, this is one of the reasons that I sort of fell in love with your videos as I was watching more and more of them. And again, it's weird because I was watching videos by someone who I thought was doing this forever and a day, and again, you've really kind of come, like I say, in the last sort of 2 years, it's been a meteoric rise of some description, but like, it's something that I've noticed. Just every video, there's just a little bit more, and then obviously with the inclusion of the premise of it being a classroom, and you're sort of holding a seminar, and the segmentation of the videos, it's all very thought out and cerebral. But I think one of the things that really comes across is it feels thought out, but it also feels, again, in that sort of relaxed sort of. You don't feel like you're imposing your views on people. You don't feel when I watch your videos that I'm being preached to, almost. Is that a conscious thing? Was that something that, or am I maybe misinterpreting? That's just my inflection on it. But like, are you just being you, or are you just naturally kind of a not a passive person, but certainly someone that's like, hey, listen, man, this is what I think. I mean, take it or leave it, man.
Yeah, I like to think it is definitely not like, it's not like I'm sitting there being like, how can I make this like make this cool, or make it apply to every specific person that watches this video, and say I don't care. It's more just like, yeah, like I don't really care what you think. It's just, this is what I think, and I think it's cool. And ironically, I kind of think that it's not even really ironic, it's just kind of obvious. That is how South Park operates a lot of time, and I think a lot of my humor and the way that I like think about things is built on that, because I've been watching South Park for so long that like I do think that I kind of my sense of humor and my sense of I guess that would be just like ideas and like how I want people to think. It is very similar to South Park in that sense, that it's like, yeah, I don't really care, just be like kind of chill, that's kind of how I feel. And when it comes to keeping that like relaxed format of the video. That is intentional to some degree. I do want to like be like keep it chill, but I also want to add myself in because I think that it makes for a more fun viewing experience to add to like have my own jokes and my own that kind of stuff. Where because there's other like a lot of other video essays I've watched where I'm just watching them talk about something and it is an interesting topic, but at the end of the day, if you're not like adding something to it and you're only talking about that thing, unless it's like super interesting, then it's like you do get kind of bored. I think the only video that would have applied to for my channel, like that could have been successful if I only talked about it, is like the Scientology one that I just made, because that story is so crazy. But other than that, I think that including that little bit of personality in the videos is kind of an essential part of what I do to some degree.
I couldn't agree with you more. And again, with one of the things that I've seen with channels that do tend to lean more towards the intellectual side of things, or at least try to ask their audience, look, just give me more than 30 seconds of your time before you swipe. It is that thing where you have to sort of ingratiate yourself by giving a little bit of yourself, which is something that, again, I've noticed that you've done more and more, which I want to ask, has that been hard? Has that been sort of where to draw the line between what you're talking about? Because again, you don't just talk about South Park. I want to get into some of the other stuff that you want to talk about, or that you have spoken about in the past. But like, how much of the subject matter is where you need to put your focus because you know that that's what the majority of the casual audience is looking for? But then there's people who tune in just for you. Where do you draw that line? Or is it again just more of a just sort of I'll feel this out as I go, or do you realize sometimes, oh, hang on, I'm being a bit too editorial here, I need to reel this back in a little bit, or maybe I need to go in a bit more, you know, like you say, give it that personality that maybe it's a bit dry, so I need to maybe where can I insert myself into this, if you'll excuse the expression?
Yeah, it is something that I've like actually, you wouldn't even think that you would have actively been thinking about it, but it is something that I've definitely actively thought about, because I've definitely been like writing a script for something and I've been like, what am I even doing? How did I get to this point where I'm talking about something like this is not even related to the topic? Like I'm just yapping on this. Like this is totally like pointless. So there are times when I'm just like, okay, well, let's reel it back a little bit. I'm just coming across as annoying at this point, just talking about myself this whole time. So like there's definitely a point when you realize that, but I think most of the time it's just kind of it comes mostly naturally, in the sense that you just feel it out, you know what where you're at, and then it also can change when I'm actually doing the voiceover, like the recording. Like if I write something and I'm like talking about it and I realize like in saying it out loud, I'm like, damn, this is like, oh, I haven't even been like said anything like funny or interesting other than this for like a long time. I need to add something in, because like you can just tell by like tone of voice and stuff too, like it comes across very differently when you're actually doing the recording versus when you're just writing the script. But there are times when I'll like cut out large portions of the video. For example, there is this one video I made where I talked about an episode where Wendy like beat the shit out of Cartman, and that episode is a great episode, one of my favorites. But though at the end I inserted this whole part where I talk about like a real life case of this guy that basically he like it kind of paralleled the situation a little bit, but it was this guy that like terrorized this town in some like small Midwest town in the United States, and he like everyone in the town hated him so much that eventually they like gathered and like shot him while he was like in his car. And it was like literally like 30 people were there standing out there watching it. And then when the police came to like obviously get a suspect, no one said anything. And it's technically an unsolved case to this day because no one's ever said anything about it, because that's how much everyone hated that guy. And my point was going to be talking about that case and say like, this is like kind of similar to Cartman's case, because everyone just kind of watched this happen and no one cared and was just waiting for this. And I was going to draw a parallel there, but then I like started reading it. I'm like, this is going to add like 2 minutes to the video at the end. Like, is this really worth it? So I kind of just cut that whole part out. So that kind of stuff happens to me all the time, where there's something I want to like include in the video, but I'm like, okay, this is just kind of pointless. I'm just gonna cut this out. So yeah, that's sort of the way that I operate. I try to keep it in, but like sometimes I know when I'm getting too ahead of myself, you know.
So here's the thing. You added 2 words to the end of that sentence that mean I can't agree with you or I can't acknowledge that statement, because you at least know, or you're cognizant of when you might be rambling on. You did a 5-minute update video recently enough that I watched it as part of this too. I was like, oh great, so, where he's just talking to the camera. Great, I get to, and it was 5 minutes. I'm like, these are usually significantly longer. I know, because when I do a live stream to nobody, when no one tunes in, I'll go for 2 hours. And in that 2 hours, I don't know if I've said anything of use to anyone, but I know I got to go for 2 hours because that's what apparently the almighty algorithm, hail to, it's what it demands. It's like, well, no, we need lots of time to be able to interject our adverts everywhere. So, like, at least you have that. At least you have that sort of internal editorial voice that says, right, would I be interested in this if I wasn't invested in this person? And I guess the question I have for that is that something you've developed? Is that something that you've developed outside of YouTube? Or is that something that you've started to hone now that you've become a successful YouTuber?
That's actually a very good question. It's something I've never really thought about, but like, it makes sense because in my real life, I am very much, and I think this is what my YouTube channel was initially based on, is just the idea that I'm the type of person, I like to just talk about things that I'm interested in and get other people to like the things that I like. You know, I'm like a reverse gatekeeper is the way I describe it, where I just like want everyone to like the things that I like.
No, don't go. Come this way. Come this way. Come and look at the thing. Look at the thing. Exactly, look at how brilliant it is.
Exactly. That's exactly how I am. And I've come to notice that I just love to get people to like the things that I like because I think they're really cool. And then specifically in the real world, I'm very bad at articulating my points. Like you can sit here and listen to me talk in this interview even, and I'm like stuttering and like saying a lot because I just like I'm not good at like talking that much, I feel like. But whenever I can sit down and like write something, I can get my point across very clearly. But like if I'm just talking to someone, I'm not good at like just telling them what I'm thinking without like sounding like I just made no sense for at least 5 minutes of what I just said. So when it comes to making my videos, that's kind of how it started initially, was like, I know that I like to talk about this kind of stuff and tell people about the stuff I'm interested in, but no one is going to want to listen to me just sit here and talk about it like in the real world, because there have been many times when I've been sitting there explaining something like to someone that I'm interested, like someone explaining something to someone about something that I'm interested in, and then I just look over and it's been 30 minutes and I realize they do not give a single shit about what I'm talking about at all, and I'm just wasted all that time. So it's like that's why I think I can get people to care about what I'm talking about. I just need to put it into like into a medium where I can do it well, and that's where writing these sort of like, I guess I would consider them video essays, that's where that sort of goes into, and like because I know I can get my point across in that medium, you know.
See, now, you remind me of someone that apparently you're a fan of, which is a Mr. Tommy Toehold, in the sense that he was a fascinating interviewer. No other reason, because he's the first person I've ever encountered who corrected himself grammatically in real time and would stop himself in mid-sentence to go, hang on, that's not right. He who said it was there. And it's like, why are you doing that? You don't have to do it. No, there's no grammar police, not here anyway. But the thing is, it's his own internal standard. This is the standard I maintain. Anything below it, I don't want to know about it. And it's like you couldn't pay him to lower his standards. One of the things that I've noticed about your videos is, number one, you hold yourself to an incredibly high editorial account, because I see you constantly make references to either omissions or mistakes or changes of opinion, or you'll add notes in to correct yourself in the edit, or all manner of different things to kind of own and have some responsibility for the stuff that you put out. And secondly, I very rarely see editing issues, which again, for a young YouTuber, for someone that's not been doing this for, again, like 8 years like me, and I still make mistakes when I'm putting these fucking things together. That's really impressive as well. And I guess the question I had is, are you kind of a perfectionist when it comes to this stuff? Or are you just really good? Or are you lucky? Or how have you managed to navigate that aspect of YouTube? The fact that when I watch your videos, I seldom go, you made a mistake there. I mean, I think the only thing that you've admitted in the editing side of things that you made a mistake with, and I don't even think it was a mistake because I did the same thing when I started, is the mixing of the audio, because there just isn't the ability to mix the audio with the editing software that I had at the time. You couldn't balance it. You couldn't add or take away gain. So you go, oh well, I'm really sorry, but there's fuck all I can do about it. So yeah, but now that I can do something about it, I will do something about it. So just to stop rambling for 2 minutes, I guess the question I have is it, again, a conscious thing that you are good at what you do, or has there been a process where you've had to learn and you've had to kind of hold yourself to these standards to avoid pitfalls of the past?
Well, it's definitely been a learning process, regardless. I think to some degree, I do like to have it be like perfect, but I wouldn't say I'm like full on. Well, I guess I would be, because the way that I do things, it's like if something's wrong there, I like am very annoyed by that. So it's like if it's something that I clearly didn't intend and I think it takes away from the video, then I will be very annoyed by that. And there are some mistakes that I have in videos that literally no one has ever noticed, and like I see them because they're like these tiny little mistakes, and I'm like, God damn it, I wish I could just re-upload this video, because it just annoys me so much. But it's one of those things where like I am not good at editing. I want to say that first. People think that I am. I'm just the most basic editor of all time. I know how to cut things, and I know how to I've learned now how to mix audio a little bit to where it's not like blowing your eardrums out. Other than that, I pretty much don't know how to edit at all. I kind of just look up like YouTube tutorials every time I want to learn how to do something, and then I just do it. Pretty much completely just learned on the fly with that. And so I'm not good. I just think I'm pretty meticulous about it. So for the most part, one of the things I focus on heavily is, and I focused on it a lot in the new video, and I think it ended up with pretty good results, is that I try to cut my audio down a lot so that it's like a little more fast paced than usual. Not in the sense that I'm like cutting stuff out, but cutting out any like gaps in speaking or anything. There was one point in the video, and I don't remember the exact point but it annoyed me because there was one single part where there's like a 1 second pause in between my like 2 sentences I was saying, and that I meant to cut out, but I forgot to, and that's like the pretty much the only big mistake I made in that video. And every time I hear it when I'm like re-listening to it or something, I'm like, it's so annoying. But other than that, it really is just, I'm kind of meticulous about that kind of stuff, where I go through and I want to make sure everything's okay. But at the end of the day, if I've already rendered a video and it's like, I say I'm about to upload it and I don't want to wait another hour to like get everything reset, at the end of the day, I just kind of have to make compromises sometimes and just deal with it. But yeah, I would say mostly I am to some degree a perfectionist, but I'm also just not really that good at it. So it ends up just being a tedious process a lot of the time.
Just a way, and you don't have to, I won't speak for you on this one, but I presume I will. Listen, fuckers. Every time I edit a video, I don't want to have to listen to it again in headphones, on speakers on my laptop, on speakers on my television set, on speakers on my phone, to check the balance on each one of those fucking things. Just take what you get, okay? It's free. It's free entertainment on YouTube, unless you're paying for premium, in which case you're an imbecile anyway. Just use ad blocker like the rest of us. Anyway, this is the other reason I fell in love with you, because again, you've made references to some of this stuff. You kind of speak to a new generation of content creators that didn't have to deal with a lot of this progression from what we wanted to do back in the day to what a lot of guys are doing now, which is completely contrived from what they started doing or what they wanted to do in the first place. You're still doing basically what you want to do, and the only thing that you've got now is progression into other genres. Because one of the things that I've noticed, especially in the early days of your channel, is that you were branching out into a few different other topics, like tsunamis are terrifying, the zombie virus, or zombie
Parasites.
That's the one. And then there's a few other ones that you touched on, Rick and Morty, and there's other things like that. So one of the questions that I had is, and we will come to South Park. If anyone cares about South Park, I'm a big fan, but I want to give this poor fucker a break from talking about South Park for a little bit. Is one of the things is, like, I sympathize with that, because one of the things as a creator, unless you've done this for a while like I have and like you have, is you do sort of fall out of love at times with what you do, and you need to just do something a little different to recharge your batteries, or to get a little bit of a different experience, or just to kind of recalibrate a little bit to go, do you know what, that was nice, but now I want to settle back into what I was doing and then full steam ahead. Have there been moments like that? And what were some of the videos that you did that helped you kind of refocus and then re-jump back into it with like, right, let's do another video that I know everyone's going to like because it's the reason that they want to tune in. And then maybe in sort of 5-10 videos time, I want to talk about this, but it's a little bit for me. Hopefully the audience likes it. And it goes from there. Like, have you had some of those videos, I guess, and which ones were they?
Well, interestingly, I feel like I've never really gotten to the point yet where I'm just like, man, I don't want to like talk about South Park or anything like that's like. For me, it's always been just preparing for that. Yeah, I guess it is like that though. For me, it's always just been preparing for the day when I don't want to. You know, like I wanted to make those make other non-South Park videos solely because I know one day I will not want to talk about South Park and I'll be like, I don't even know what to say about the show anymore. So I'm like, I'm sort of just like putting those out there to know that people like them still and that it's like people are going to be ready for when that change eventually happens. I don't think I'll ever really stop making South Park videos, at least not anytime within the near future. But I also just like making videos on other stuff. And like I said, I'm the type of person where anything that I'm interested in, I want everyone to know how cool it is and how interesting it is. So like, for example, with the Mega Tsunamis video, that was the first like, obviously I made the Rick and Morty video, but that's kind of an adjacent one to the South Park stuff. And all the other videos were before I even really like decided that South Park would be my main thing. So the Mega Tsunamis video, that was something that I just really thought that was something super interesting and I'd never seen anyone talk about it on YouTube. I'm like, this is such a interesting concept and no one's ever like really dove in depth into these things, so I feel like I should just like talk about it because I want people to realize how absurd some of this stuff is, like stories are, and that's what it was. There's not really a thought that I'm like, okay, well, I have to. Obviously, I knew it wasn't going to be as successful as normal videos, but I'm one of those people that I just have faith in my creation process, and I know that I'm making something that's good at least. So at the very least, even if it's not getting views, people are going to recognize that it's good and it'll make them come back and watch whatever next I put out that's not going to be about South Park because they think it'll be good. So there is like the tsunamis and the parasites are like kind of the two that I've done since becoming like a truly like what a lot of people consider to be a South Park channel. And both of those are two of my favorite videos on this channel, honestly. I think that those are really good videos. And obviously they're not as successful, but I don't really care that much. I just like to make videos about stuff that I'm interested in, and I like to make people be interested in those things as well. So that's kind of what it boils down to.
And on that point, I totally sympathize. It's crazy, and I know you touched on this with your interview with the other guys, which is it's so crazy how often it's the video that you least suspect blows up. And you go, really? That's the one you all like? Okay.
Yeah,
and but then you have to remind yourself, look, it's YouTube. If it was just about how much the creator enjoyed the video and there was some barometer for it, fine. But it isn't. It's that little counter and the like thing and the YouTube data and all of it goes, okay, good video, bad video based on numbers. And unfortunately, that's just kind of the way the game is played. So you can't judge your audience based on what they do and don't like. It's up to you as a creator to decide, right, do you want to lean into it? Do you want to lean away from it? Do you want to take it, interpret it? All the rest of this good jazz. The other question I had was, what have you learned? Like, in terms of, have you adapted? Have you changed some of the things that you do to be more audience friendly or to lean into what their not dietary habits, but their content dietary habits are in terms of what they like to see at certain points of video or even when to upload? Like, have you given much thought to that, or again, have you kind of just gone your own way as far as, I feel like making one, because I've noticed in the past that when South Park videos have dropped, or South Park episodes have dropped, and you've even referenced the fact that, okay, it's been 3 weeks. I appreciate that it's not exactly the next day. But is that because you're just like, well, that's how long it takes, guys. The video that I want to make is going to take 3 weeks. That's it. Or do you go, well, actually, a bit of space between the episode and my video isn't a bad thing. So maybe take my time a little bit. Give it a bit of breathing space. Let everyone else have their own hot takes. And then I'll come in with my more considered take.
Yeah, honestly, honestly, with that, this might be a disappointing answer. It's literally just laziness. Like I just get like so um, like every time I upload a video, I have like at least like a 3 day period afterwards where I do absolutely nothing at all except for sit and play video games all day, because I just like it's like the way that I work is very much I is very much the way that I used to work in school and everything, where I was the kid that would never do anything for like weeks and weeks, and then the day before the test, I'm studying for 12 hours straight and like just cramming everything in. And I'm sure a lot of people relate to that, and that's very much how I do my YouTube as well. Like I won't work for like literally a week or two, and then I'll just literally like 3 or 4 days, like 15-hour days for 3 or 4 days straight, just grinding on that video and just like hyper fixated on it. And then after that, I'm just burnt out for another week and a half at least. So
I gotta jump in because me too. Why do we do that? Where's the psychological imperative to doing that to ourselves? Why do we do that?
I think it has to do with just like, for me specifically, at school, it was purely based out of necessity. It's like I've always hated school. Like I've always been one of those guys that I just like cannot. Like I was always good at school. I always did well in school, and that's mainly because I didn't really have an option. My dad was like, if you don't get an A in this class, then you're in trouble pretty much. So like I always like had it like all A's, like good GPA, like top of my class type of stuff. But it was mainly just because I just that's kind of the only option I had. But like at the same, because of how much I hated it, it was like I only did what was absolutely necessary to get what I needed to get. And that a lot of times I came to realize was I could just do all the work on the last day, and then I'll be okay a lot of the time. Like I'll get the bare minimum grade I need to get through this. Very underachiever like in school. But in my YouTube and like in my videos, I think it's more that I just have to wait for that like passion to come back, or that interest, because I know if I start working on this video and I'm not super invested in it, it's not going to be a good video. Because like I said, I think one of the most important parts of content creation is showing that you're passionate about what you're doing. So if I'm not like ready to start the video, it is very mental, and I know I'm not gonna like if I'm not ready to start it, I'm not gonna have anything that I want to say or anything I want to talk about, because I just am not like locked in yet, you know. So I kind of just wait for that feeling to come back a lot of the time, and then that's when I start working again.
Oh man, it's like finding a long lost YouTube twin. It really is. Because look, I did, for those that aren't aware, and I'm sure you're not aware, because again, people did watch it, but it wasn't the success I wanted it to be. I did a weekly gaming news show. And even just news writes itself. All you got to do is report it. And with me, I had a little bit of a personal take on it here, or an editorial thing there. But just doing a weekly show was hard when, I got to be honest with you, there were some weeks where it's like, dude, fucking nothing happened in gaming this week. Like, maybe some developer said a game might come out next year. Like, that's not a news story to get, and you want me to talk about this for 15 minutes? Fuck am I going to talk about for 15 minutes? And you got to find things to talk about almost, rather than what you do. And what I love about what you do, which is you have something to say. And it's just about, right, how do I say it? What's the best way of articulating? What's the most effective way? What's the most entertaining way? And one of the things that I think that's lost in current content creation, if you want to call it that, is this notion that you shouldn't just be talking because you want to talk. You should have some substance to what you're talking about. I mean, sure, if you want to plagiarize television shows and just upload them with some, gaming video side by side and call it content, then fine. Hi, TikTok. But the point is that, like, I feel like the greatest era of YouTube is when people were invited to come on to speak their piece about what they wanted to talk about, what they genuinely like. You have no editorial constraints, no budgetary constraints. There's no censor. You can talk about anything you want. And yet, guys like you are becoming rarer and rarer. And again, one of the things I wanted to talk about is, because you're so young and because you've had a relatively sharp rise, is navigating the temptations that must be there as someone that's now got an audience that can quite easily transition into TikTok, into Shorts, into Twitch, into a million different things. but then do run the risk of burning you out into, right, now I've got to talk about stuff rather than I want to talk about stuff. How do you resist that urge? Or is it something that you just don't pay any mind to?
Well, when it comes to like making different types of content like that, honestly, I just don't really care about it. Like I've just never really had any interest in making that kind of stuff, because at the end of the day, I like to make videos because I like to make videos, not really for any other reason other than that. Obviously, now it's a job to some degree, like it's how I make the majority of my income, but I still do it at a level where I'm comfortable enough to where I can make videos that I want to make. You know, I'm fortunate in that degree. But when it comes to making other like content, I've never really had much of an interest in it, and I've always kind of thought of it like, and this is gonna sound kind of fucking douchey and pretentious, and this is not how I mean it at all, but it will come across that way. If I wanted to have a YouTube channel with, say, 5 million subscribers, I really believe I could have it, and because I know a lot about YouTube, and I've like I said, I've been watching YouTube since I was like 10 years old, and now I'm 22. I've been watching it only YouTube for 12 years. I probably have like 70,000 hours at least of YouTube content consumed, if not a lot more. And I truly believe that I have the knowledge of YouTube to know how I could make a massively successful channel, but I have no interest in that. I don't really care that much about making that a ton of money. I don't care about getting incredibly rich off of YouTube or anything. What I care about right now is just making videos about stuff that I like, and showing people why stuff that I like is cool and why they should like it too. And that's like literally the #1 priority for me. So as long as I'm making enough money to live and like I can do what I enjoy, then I'm going to do what I enjoy.
And on that note, you everyone who is busting their guts going, when is it going to talk about South Park? 2 words. South Park. Are you happy now, fuckers? Let's talk about South Park, because it has become the focus of your channel. It has become the thing that you are, I would argue, most closely associated with when an upload goes up of yours. Talk to me about your fandom of it. Like, I mean, the question to ask is, what was your... I know you've been watching for a long time, but we all have our moment where we're introduced to something. Akira Toriyama recently passed. I will never forget the first time I ever saw Dragon Ball Z. When I was like walking home one day, Toonami was on, and I'm like, the hell is this? And then Goku threw a Kamehameha, and I'm like, okay, tell me more. South Park was the same. I remember being told in no uncertain terms, there's a DVD, no, VHS, kids. Yeah, go ask your parents about what those were. Right, this VHS, my dad, right, he would let us watch Terminator 2. Right, at fucking 8 years old, right? We watched Jaws at like 7, right? He had no filter when it comes to the shit, right? But South Park, bigger, longer, and uncut, right? I'm telling you in no uncertain terms, you are not allowed to watch this. And I remember seeing it for the first time. It was on Channel 4, which over here is a UK terrestrial channel. Parents weren't, they can't help it because I was up late. And Carl's Mom's a Bitch plays. And I go, this might be the greatest thing I've ever seen. And we're away for the races. I'm a South Park fan for life. Tell me what your seminal moment with South Park was when you were like, what is this? And I might dedicate my life to this one day.
Yeah, this is gonna... anyone that's like an older fan of the show, this is gonna like probably like make them feel very old and make me seem like a like a child. But the first time I actually got into South Park was not watching the show on TV or anything, because my parents, like, first of all, my parents were not, they hated any sort of like that kind of stuff, obviously. Specifically, my mom was like, she wouldn't even let me play Call of Duty or anything. I always wanted to play Call of Duty. My mom was never letting me play it, despite all my friends playing it. So she was very against that kind of stuff when I was young. But when I was 13, so I was in the 8th grade, is when South Park: The Stick of Truth came out, and that was the video game. And yeah, so that's gonna make everyone feel very old. But that's when
I'm going to stop you right there. Stop. You are not right. You are not about to tell me that the first time you were introduced to South Park was through the Stick of Truth.
Well, I will tell you that that's kind of the case, and it's honestly probably even worse than you think it is.
God, your youth offends
what happened
me.
was,
It offends me.
My first exposure to South Park was not only through the Stick of Truth, but it was through a PewDiePie gameplay of the Stick of Truth on YouTube. So watching PewDiePie play the Stick of Truth is literally the first time I mean, obviously I had heard of South Park because it was South Park. Everyone knows it is. Just like I'd heard of Family Guy and all those cartoons, and I had friends that had watched them, but I never had any interest in it because I had never seen it or like clicked on, like, I don't even know if my package had Comedy, like my cable stuff had Comedy Central or anything, but I had never seen it. And then I watched the Stick of Truth PewDiePie gameplay, and I was like, this is hilarious, like I need to watch more of this. And so from then on, I found a website, or no, so that was back when South Park Studios had every episode on their website. So that was before it was even on like streaming services and stuff like that. And I watched every episode. What's interesting, I got the very unique experience of watching every episode in order. Like I didn't like see a random episode and then watch another one, but I watched every single episode in order from start to finish in about, I want to say, a week. And at that point it was only up to season 18 was the most recent season. So that's the season where like their Randy is Lord and stuff like that season. And I loved it up to, it was so funny, and that was like my favorite show. And then I didn't watch it again for about, I want to say probably, let me think, senior, probably like I didn't watch any of the new stuff. I would occasionally watch the show again just if it was on, but I just like didn't watch any of the new seasons or anything, not for any particular reason. I just stopped, like didn't really think about it. I was a senior in high school and like first becoming a freshman in college, I started watching it again because my girlfriend, who had never seen the show, and I was like, okay, well, like I said, my whole personality is showing people things requirement. So we watched the whole show, and then we also watched all the new seasons that had come out in that time. And after I finished watching the whole show, I was like, you know, there's like, I feel like there's so much I could say about this. And it's like, this is right when the pandemic started and everything. And I was at home because I was at college, but because of the pandemic, I ended up just going home because there was nothing to do on campus or anything. So I'm at home and I'm like, okay, well, this is the perfect opportunity to actually start making YouTube videos like that I've wanted to make forever. And I guess the first one I'll make will be about South Park, because that's something I can talk about and something I know a lot about. And so that was kind of the start of everything. And that's the story of how I got into South Park, pretty much.
Do you remember the moment in the Stick of Truth that you saw for the first time? Is that because the Stick of Truth I've played through a couple of times. I still haven't played the Fractured Butthole. I plan to, but the Stick of Truth is one that I was like, I love this game. But there is definitely a few moments in it that I will never scrub from the recesses of my memory, even if I develop dementia one day. They'll be asking me, do you know what day it is? No. Do you remember that bit in South Park where Khloe Kardashian has... Yeah, I remember. Don't ask me any more about it, please. Like,
yeah.
Do you remember what moment it was?
Well, I was gonna say, I remember because I watched it from the beginning with PewDiePie, so like from the first upload he made, so it was just really from the beginning. But the thing I remember most distinctly by far, whenever I think of the Stick of Truth, is the fucking abortion clinic and all that stuff going on. That's the most distinct memory, because even as a kid, like a 13-year-old, I was like, this, I could tell, I'm like, this is fucked up. I was like, damn,
it really is. It's honestly, if you've never played the game, it's one of those moments where you go, they won't. Will they?
But yeah.
And then they...
And then you're like, wait, this is South Park. They will do
South
that,
Park,
actually.
Because earlier on in the same game, right, they have another one of those moments where you go, they won't, will they? And they do pull back a tiny bit. It's where they're taking the pictures for the driving license, and the guy's like,
oh yeah, and the guy,
we need to lose that, and then we need to lose that, and you think, no, they're not going to go for it. And then they don't, and it's like, phew. But then they go to the abortion clinic, and you go, they won't. And then they do, and you're like, oh my fucking god. And that's, I think, telling that that's in a game that everyone unilaterally loves, that there's a moment that we can all go, oh no, no, and it's great. But I find that, again, so to talk about South Park for a minute and indulge our fandoms for a moment rather than fixating on all the ramifications of the controversy and the rest of it, one of the things that I've always loved about South Park is that humor, ultimately, is the fact that it's got a very unique blend of silly humor, of dark humor, of satirical humor, of parody, of all these different things. It's not above anything. It doesn't look at anything like, well, that's not our humor. It's what's funny for the situation. Now, you can argue whether or not it lands or not in any given situation, or some of the things are repetitive or uninspired or whatever. But one of the things I take away is they've been 25 years now, right? 25 plus years that they've been going, or something stupid like that.
Yeah, 26 now. Yeah.
How the hell do you go 26 years staying relevant, funny, on topic, and relatively speaking, they've preserved their legacy? Like, when you look at it as a fan and you look at it through its history, like, what do you take away from it across its 26-year lifespan in terms of its humor, what impacts it's had on you, and like how your fandom with it has evolved? Like, what are your thoughts that come to mind?
I think that it's interesting because the show has gone through its so many different like phases, like their own like arcs and stuff, and it's super interesting to watch because it's like watching this thing evolve over 26 seasons, and like it's very uncommon that you get to see a show evolve like that. There's like very few shows that have even lasted that long, and especially like scripted comedy shows. That's like only The Simpsons pretty much has done it that long. So
yeah.
It's interesting because you look at their different phases, and the way I always break it down into different groups, like the first 3 seasons, which Matt and Trey have talked about many times that they don't like the first 3 seasons, which I don't agree with. I like the first 3 seasons, but they're objectively very different from what would come later on. The first 3 seasons are very much what people think South Park is, you know, like the way that people like that have never really watched South Park, the first 3 seasons are what they think South Park is, and that's just like toilet humor, dumb jokes. Like occasionally they'll have this like clever joke, but it's a lot of just like kind of dumb, but it's still great. I still love the first 3 seasons because one thing I've always appreciated about South Park is they do really, really dumb humor all the time, but it's always been from a place of like, they're like, this is funny because it's dumb. Like we recognize that this is really stupid, and that's what makes it funny. So I've always appreciated that aspect of it. But that's how the first 3 seasons are. They're all very like stupid jokes, but it's still very good in my opinion. Then from the 4th season is when they start kind of changing, and like clearly they go in a more satirical direction, but it's not quite like how it would become. And then the 5th season, from like the 5th season to like the probably I would say up until maybe even the like 15th season, 16th season, that's all like when that's kind of the golden age in my opinion. Like that's like peak in the sense that that's when they were hitting their stride in terms of controversy, in terms of satirical like nature, in terms of just like actually funny episodes that are completely non-satirical, like the Warcraft episodes, and the like all the best episodes are in that time period in my opinion. So a lot of the best ones aren't even like people always associate it with like politics and that kind of stuff. A lot of the best ones have nothing to do with that. That's how the Warcraft one is. That's how Scott Tenorman, that's like the best Cartman episode. There's so many different great episodes in that time period that you would have to call it the best in my opinion. And it's a very long time period. It's like 10 years, like I said, like 10 seasons of like gold in my opinion. And then after that, you start to get to what I still consider to be, it's another transitional period. I feel like it's from like season 16 to season 19 is kind of when they transition from being like just I forget the word when they're like none of the episodes are connected, but now they are more serialized a little bit more. They're trying to have some continuity in between the episodes. 17 is like the first one that really did that, and then 19 is like a much more serialized storyline, and those are still really good seasons. I like all those seasons. 19 is probably one of my favorites within the last like 10 years, I would say. And then you get to season 20, and that's when shit hits the fan, because season 20 I do not like, and I know that's not really an unpopular opinion. A lot of people feel that way, and it really wasn't their fault that season 20 sucks so bad. It's more just like what happened was they were building it up around the presidency and everything, and it was very on the nose with a lot of its commentary and stuff. The way I describe it is it simultaneously felt like it was like on the nose and explaining what they're trying to say, while also being like, you're like, what the hell is they even talking? Like, what is, like, I feel like I need a Reddit post to dissect like what is even going on in this episode a lot of the time. And that's why season 20 kind of fell flat for me. And the same thing, and also the fact that that's when the presidency was, and they were building it around the fact that Hillary Clinton was going to win, and then spoiler alert, Hillary Clinton did not win the presidency. So then they had to completely retcon the entire story. And then from that point on, nothing made any sense for the rest of the season. And then they're just making jokes about Trump the whole time. And like, it became very tired very quickly, because how do you make fun of Trump when he is Trump? You know, like himself is already insane enough. So it's like, there's nothing to even make fun of at that point. And Mr. Garrison was one of my favorite characters. And to like have him just become Trump, it like took away an entire character from the show that could be used for a lot of other stuff. So that's like my kind of rambly complaint about season 20. And then season 21 kind of suffered from a lot of the same issues, but it was improving. Season 22, same thing. They're improving, but they're still like, it's like not as good as it was. And then season 23 was pretty good again, but again, it still like felt like, it didn't really feel like South Park anymore. It was like, it was just different. It still felt like South Park, but it was just missing something, you know? And then season 24 isn't really a season, because it's just the post-COVID, or not the post-COVID, the vaccination and COVID specials. And it's because that was obviously peak COVID. And so it's only 2 like hour-long specials for the entire season. So that was like pretty uneventful, but they were good specials. They were like improving, heading back in the right direction, in my opinion. Season 25 felt like they were giving an active effort to transition back to old South Park, but they weren't necessarily being successful at it yet. I like season 25, but it felt kind of just bland, in my opinion. Like I said, it felt like they were trying to be old South Park without actually being old South Park. And then season 26 is the most recent season, and that's where I think they've kind of found a return to form to some degree. Like, this has probably been the best season in a very, very long time, in my opinion. And it does feel like old South Park again, which is something that I thought honestly would never happen, but it did happen again. And that's why I think the show is so good at like just lasting, because they know how to return to their roots when they have to. And I think that they realize, okay, we need to just make South Park again. Like, stop trying to, we're not the news. So you're not here to just talk about every single event that's happening right now. It's like we're still South Park. We're still trying to be funny, and we're gonna make just funny episodes again. And I think they did that. Also, the specials have been a very good example of that. All the specials have been very funny. The post-COVID specials, I think, were some of the best South Park in a very, very long time. The streaming wars were just kind of meh. Looking back on them, I think they were kind of mid, but they were fine. And then what was the most recent one? It was the one with Disney. I don't know why I'm not remembering the name. That one was very good as well, where all the boys gender and race swapped and everything. That was a good one. And then the most recent one was why am I forgetting? Oh, the Prime one.
The Cred one. Yeah.
Stuff. Yeah. So both of those were really good as well. So all the specials have been great. I've liked those a lot. And I think overall we're now at a point where it feels like they're returning to I called it a renaissance in my video that I made about it, and I think that's true, because also the show is more popular right now than it's ever been, like, weirdly enough, because of all the people covering it on TikTok and and on YouTube and stuff, and because it's also just been really good again, and they've been controversial again too, which is something they haven't been in forever. Since like the last time they were controversial, season 23, was when they did Banned in China, and they got banned in China. That was probably their last big controversy, and before that, it was like long time ago. Like, probably the video games were their most controversial thing up to that point. And then so then now they had the big controversy this time was with the Prince of England, or Prince Harry and everything. That was a big controversy, because it felt like old South Park, because they're saying, oh, we're gonna sue them and all this kind of stuff. And then the Logan Paul one was a little bit controversial, but not really. But of course, the Kathleen Kennedy and Disney one was also very controversial. So it feels like they're really returning to what made them great. And I think that's the best part about the direction that they're heading in currently. And I think it's going to lead to a lot of great things. And I think they're confirmed through season 30, I believe. So we have at least 4 more seasons guaranteed. So, I mean, it looks like we're not going to run out of content anytime soon, and I would be surprised if they didn't keep making content even after those 4 seasons. So I don't even remember what the question was initially. I kind of just started rambling about the show, but yeah, that was my thought process on that.
Again, I'm gonna just break the fourth wall here for a second. I love it when guests go on. I ask a question, they maybe start it, but then they go on their own tangents. It's always great because then they take the conversation and make it their own, rather than me going, "So why are you so great?" And they go, you tell me, you're fucking I don't know, but I like that because it's that thing of now I've got, because 2 questions arise from that, and the first one is, over that span you've mentioned that it's gone through different evolutions, and some it's been beneficial, others not. When I saw, and it was on the DVD extras, this is how long ago it was, the 6 days to air special that Comedy Central put out about South Park, and you saw how it was made. I didn't know that it was only 6 days production, from script to edit to render to upload, in effect, right? I don't know how I feel about that to this day, because I get that that's their process, as it were. But I think about, again, like you as a creator, for instance, if I said to you, right, you got to make your video and you got to turn it around in 3 days, and if that means you've got to stay up till 5 o'clock in the morning the following day to get 2 hours sleep, to wake up under your desk and start again for 5 days straight, I don't know how I'd feel about that from a moral perspective. And it's one of those rare occasions where I was like, I don't know if they're aware that that's not a good thing necessarily, and yet I can't argue with the results of that particular special, which was the Human Sentai Pad, which is one of my, again, it's one of the most twisted episodes that you'll ever see. When it comes to their process, has anything that, because obviously you're an avid fan, which means that I imagine you've seen interviews with Trey Parker and Matt Stone in terms of their writing process, in terms of their editorial process, in terms of their history, the fact that when they started, you know, they did certain things. Has any of that rubbed off on you? Has any of that inspired you, or has any of that sort of come away from like, this is kind of something about South Park that I've garnered that I want to make use of, rather than just enjoying South Park as a fan?
Well, I do think, ironically, that the way that they work is pretty much how I work, honestly, because, like I said, I kind of just cram everything into this small time frame, and that was not obviously didn't have anything to do with them. It was more just coincidence that that's the case. Is that I just work very similarly, and I do think my best videos are when I'm working like that, where it's just like 3 or 4 days of just constant like working, because as they talk about, and that the reason they even work on that schedule is because they don't like, specifically Trey, they don't like giving themselves time to second guess themselves and like be like, okay, but we can change this isn't funny, like all that kind of stuff. And I feel the same way. A lot of my best videos have been done in that short time frame, and it's stuff that like I thought about it and I'm like, I don't know if I want to keep this in. But then I end up keeping it in, and that's like everyone's commenting about it, saying that's their favorite part, all that kind of stuff. So I do think that process for some people can be the way to do it, but I would say a very small portion of people would ever be able to function in that way and like actually be productive in that, because most people do need planning. But like when you just kind of have those ideas in your mind and they only come out when you're like put under pressure like that, I think that's the type of personality it takes to even run a schedule like that. And I find myself being very similar to that. But in terms of like ideas that I would take away, I feel like the whole show is just like, I hate the idea that people, obviously there's people that build their entire personality around a show and stuff. And as much as I'm a big fan of the show, I'm never going to be like, well, this is what I think because South Park thinks that. Like, I think that's cringe. And I think that anyone that does that is kind of just, you know, I think anyone that makes anything their whole personality is always cringe, like no matter what.
My
like,
sweet
you have
summer
to
child.
have a diversified personality.
I gotta just jump in. Say hello to fucking football punditry in the UK, because, and I'm talking to my audience now, for those of you that are football fans, y'all gotta stop listening to TalkSport and then parroting exactly what those fuckers said about your favorite teams. Watch the game, develop your own opinions, then cross-check them with other people's. Because you're 100% right. Like, when people form a brand loyalty, if you want to call it that extends beyond, look, I like what you do, so I'll check it out. And it extends to, what did you say? What he said. That's what I believe. Then it becomes like,
oh, yeah.
No, don't do that. That's terrible. Don't do that.
Definitely. And funny enough, that's even I've seen that apply to my fans, unfortunately. Like I'll like look in the I'm in the South Park Discord server and like the official one, and occasionally I'll be reading like opinions in that, and I see people just saying exactly what I say in videos and stuff, and I'm just like, I get if you agree with me, but just like make your own opinions. Not even saying like, obviously I don't care if they have my opinions. I think I'm right about everything, and that's why I have those opinions. But I hate when people justify it as, oh well, Blooms thinks this, because that's what I see all the time. They'll be like, oh, Blooms thinks that he thinks that this episode's good and all this kind of stuff. I'm like, that's not any, just why does my opinion matter? It doesn't. My opinion means nothing. Just because I have more, like I have subscribers, does not mean that my opinion is more correct on this at all. Like I just make videos about a show I like. Your opinion is equally as valid as mine if you watch the show. Like, I don't know.
I do and I don't agree with that sentiment. I don't know how much you want to get into this debate, if you want to call it that, but like, I agree, by the way. I think the argument should stand for itself. It either follows a logical consistency or it doesn't. But there is something to be said about the fact that, again, talking about you for a second, the fact that people have gravitated towards you is surely in part the fact that you speak a lot of sense to people, or that what you say has a lot of salience to them, and that's because so many people share the same opinion, or they at least appreciate how you've arrived at yours. So maybe it's not that yours isn't or it isn't more valid than the next person's based on numbers, but it is more valid in the sense that it clearly appeals to more people, and therefore has perhaps more of a, I don't know, certainly has more resonance, but there's something maybe more broadly truthful about it. Maybe I don't know if I'm articulating that very well, but there's something to the fact.
No, I get what you're trying to say. Definitely.
Yeah.
I get that. I think that is true, that there is a degree of like, I hate that this is the case, but it seems like a lot of the stuff that I like, the way that I do things is kind of like what South Park does inadvertently, but it's like, I think that the show itself kind of does that, where a lot of the times they share an opinion that's like, it seems controversial, and I've talked about this in many videos. It seems controversial, but really, if you look at what they're saying, it's like the least controversial opinion ever. It's just like, yeah, like everyone just needs to chill out, pretty much, is like generally the opinion of the show, or like, just don't be so extreme about everything. And I do think that to some degree, I like share those same sentiments in my videos. But I think what I really like was like, and I think with that type of thing, then people, yeah, are right, can say whatever they want, but I think that what I was really like meaning was that I don't like when people, for example, dislike an episode because I dislike it, or dislike a character, for example, Pip. I see people hating on Pip all the time now. I never really saw it that much beforehand, and now that I think I've been making a lot of videos about Pip, it's like I said, in the Pip video, there was a guy that wrote an entire fucking like literal 10-paragraph essay on Tumblr about the fact that like why Pip is declining in the fandom, and why it's like why he's like not a popular character anymore, and he listed me as being one of like the main factors for that. And I honestly kind of agree, which sucks, because I don't want people to hate Pip just because I don't like him. Like I want people to hate him for the reasons that I pointed out that I don't like him, not just because I dislike him. But like, if you're gonna hate him, at least hate him for the reasons that I said I hate him, you know, or other reasons, you know. I don't want people to just hate him because of my opinion. That's kind of what I meant by that.
Okay. Hard segue before I ask you a question I really want to ask you, but since you use the word hate, let's stick on hate for a second. Copyright, fair use, and YouTube. You cover one of the most popular television shows / now online streaming service shows of all time, on a famously liberal and in no way copyright heavy-handed platform.
Of course not. Yeah.
You got to talk to me about that, because again, I when I started again in the twilight years of 2016 or whenever the fuck it was, you could use it was fair use. It was literally, you have to obviously not just upload an entire, because it was copyright. I remember covering a live stream of a boxing match, and that got taken down quick, and I realized quite quickly, no, that's fair. But you could use clips of shit to illustrate what you were talking about, and it was fine. Now, it's, you got to cut it, you got to flip it, you got to add effects to it, you got to mute it, you got to then get permission if it gets taken down. or if it gets demonetized, because you know it's going to get demonetized, you've got to find other ways of making monetization for a video that is 100% yours, and yet because it shows clips or images of someone else's copyrighted content, oh, we're taking it. Right. You got to talk to me about how you navigate that, man, in terms of, number one, how the fuck do you find the energy to keep going, because it must happen to you all the time, and secondly, how have you learnt to handle it? How have you learnt to take it in stride, considering that you've clearly dealt with it and navigated it to a certain degree?
I think that it's the copyright system on YouTube is broken, and I always say this, and there have been moments where I've just like lost it over it, and like I've like gone on a Twitter rant about it. I've deleted those tweets now, but there have been times when I've gone like very upset about it. I'm generally a pretty even-headed, like level-headed guy. I don't really have strong emotional responses towards things, but specifically with that is one thing that will just winds me up so much, because it is just total bullshit, and all of it's just like literal stealing, and it really frustrates me. But I mean, okay, so the problem is it's like it's just a broken system where they're allowing these companies to break the law, literally break the law, because what they're doing is violating like any fair use law and anything. The difference is they know no one's going to take them to court over it. If I went to court over any of these claims, of course I would win, because of the fact that these are fair use videos. Anyone with eyes can see that. You know, I'm not breaking any rules, but like the difference is on YouTube, the copyright system just allows for this either auto claiming, they have bots that do it, or if someone just doesn't like what you're talking about in the video, they'll just come in and manually claim it themselves. And that happens all the time. Now, whenever I upload a video, I've gotten good at avoiding I can avoid the automatic one most of the time now, in the sense that I try not to use any clips longer than like 6 seconds is kind of the limit I'll set. Occasionally I'll push my luck and see what I can do, but I try to not use any clips longer than that. And if I know I'm going to, I'll try to add like a border or something if I have to. But even still, they have manual claims, so they even if you're doing nothing to trigger the automatic claims, they can just come in and be like, okay, well, we want the money for this, so let's just go ahead and take that. And then there's not really much you can do about it. It's something that it's undoubtedly the most tedious part of making YouTube videos. All the process of making videos I enjoy and I love to do, but that part where it's like, okay, well, this part got claimed, so now I got to go through and like change it a tiny bit, like edit it, and then re-render this entire video, this hour-long video that took an hour and a half to render already. Now I have to go and re-render it, unless I want to wait 2 days for this fucking copyright system to tell me that I'm actually correct, which of course I already know that I'm actually correct, but they're not going to agree with me unless because there's also a time limit on how long they have to respond once you file a claim. So then I file a claim, and then they have like a certain amount of days to respond. Normally it's 7 days, I think, but they do it generally within a couple. But I'm not going to wait that long, because I have, for example, if I have a sponsor that is in the video, in my last video, I had a sponsor and that video got claimed immediately, and I was going to wait to see if I could do it, but the video was due the next day for the sponsor, or else they wouldn't want to do it at all. So then I had to go through and edit it and put a border on it and come back around, and that took another probably 3 hours of time, and I just want to go to bed at this point because I'm tired, because I've been working all day, and then I have to go through and re-edit it. I'm complaining about this. First of all, let me just clarify that this is YouTube, and this is still the greatest job ever. I wouldn't trade it for anything. I'm not saying it's I'm not like, I don't want to be like, oh, I have to re-edit this video, wah, like poor me. That's obviously not the point, because I have a great job.
Let me save the gentleman from any I'll say it. You don't know how fucking heartbreaking it is to upload it and to see that. And when you just want to get a hold of someone to just say, listen, just be reasonable. Just be reasonable. Look, your piece of content is 3 minutes long. Even if I uploaded the whole thing, my video's an hour and a half. Are you saying I played your video on loop 20 times in succession, and that's why you're claiming the whole video? Is that the sense you're employing there? Because that's what's crazy about it, right? That was my videos started about 2 months before the adpocalypse, right? And they brought in the copyright claiming system as an automated thing rather than the claims thing, right? They've had the better part of 10 years now to implement something that if you want to say, look, fair use is out the window, right? You can't use content that's not yours, period, even though that's against the law. Okay, fine. Y'all have time tags in your videos now. Can you not at least let me put time tags for the copyrighted stuff?
Yeah.
You can claim that if you want, the 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 seconds that I'm using. Let me keep the rest. Fine. I'll do that. That's fine, because then, like you've said, it saves because it's not just the video being claimed. It's all the time spent fighting it, spent replying to emails, to send stuff, to then have to lose it anyway, take the video down, redo everything and re-upload it. Like, the energy it takes from you for the sake of, look, just tweak it. Just change it a little bit to change, because then it puts the onus back on us as creators to go, listen, okay, do I want to use this piece of copyright material? Yes. Okay, then I've got to tag it. That's just how I'll get around it. I'll just tag it. That's fine. I don't get credit for that 3, 4, 5 seconds of content, but at least everyone's then on the same loop, because you're being upfront with the fact that you're using copyrighted content, even if it is for editorial or for fair use purposes.
Yeah.
But it's been 10 years and there's been no fix. It's crazy. Mad.
The only thing that they do that kind of can help is they do have a function to trim out segments, but like the issue with that is that it doesn't actually work. Like it can trim out segments, but for example, with that last video that I what the hell am I saying? With that last video that I made, they claimed the entire video and said the entire thing was copyrighted content, which makes no sense because half of the video is me just my like my character guy, like my little flower guy. So like, how the hell is that copyright? That's not so if I want to use the trim out segment, there's literally 45 seconds of video left in a 40-minute video. So it's like what, there's no real solution to it. And the only thing you can do is try to avoid it at all costs. And even when you do everything that you can, a lot of times it doesn't really matter. Luckily for me, there's never been a point where I literally just couldn't get a video uploaded because of copyright. Eventually, I can always get it figured out, but it just sucks. It's just so tedious to go through and have to wait on their replies. I compare it to doing laundry. I always say doing laundry is the worst chore ever because it's the only chore where you have to start it and then wait an hour before you can do anything again, and then start it again and then wait an hour before you can do anything again. It's like doing laundry, but like over a much longer time frame, and it's just god awful, and it sucks, and I hate it. It's I could rant about it all day, but yeah.
Please do. I have nothing but time. Go ahead. No, but like, I had to ask about it because it is that craziness of YouTube that, like you said, look, I wanted to be a YouTuber the second I found out what YouTube was, and I still want to be a YouTuber, and I've been doing this 8 years to varying degrees of success. I still want to do this. I still love making videos, but it's things like that make it so simple for me to see why other people would go, fuck it, why would I deal with any of this shit when I could upload a 30-second clip of myself doing this to a music video and have none of the problems, as opposed to, hey, YouTube, I've spent literally weeks comprising this. I've written it, I've researched it, I've pulled together assets and material to illustrate the points. It's articulate, it has emotion, it's a flow. Yeah, but there's 3 seconds here is copyrighted, so you can trim it if you want. Well, yeah, but that ruins the flow of my video and therefore harms my brand because now, well,
and then everyone in the comments just goes, what the fuck happened at this timestamp? What? And then you're like, well, sorry guys, I had to cut out an entire chunk of the video because of this, but
because you see that now with some of the older videos of someone like Angry Joe, for instance, I see has done this, where he'll mute entire segments of his video, which is sometimes a minute long, which is fine. I get it. He probably shouldn't have used a minute's worth of someone else's music. That's fine. I've got no problems with that. But in fairness to him, he is talking and doing his wacky shit over it. So it's like, well, yeah, but he's not competing with the original content in its strictest sense. So is there really a...
It would be fair use, objectively speaking, if you were just taking it into... If you're talking over a song that's playing, that's fair use because you're not replacing the content. That's kind of like the main thing that's supposed to be considered with fair use is that is this a replacement for the content? And of course it's not, but it doesn't actually matter because the companies know that they can abuse that. Like there's no regulation to it because unfortunately it's really impossible to get an actual system that would automatically do anything like that on the scale that they need it to do it on.
that would be able to take into account actual fair use. The only thing that I have hopes for is maybe they can have, now that AI is becoming more and more popular, and obviously they've already been using AI, but as it improves, maybe there's a way in the future that the AI could be able to detect whether or not something truly is fair use. But even that, I'm very doubtful for that kind of thing to ever happen.
Yeah, not when the onus is just on the creator. It's just, look, you know, we'll sort of give you an outline of what the rules are, and you can guess. Because that's what I've always found is like sometimes I'll have I had a video pinged the other day.
And they don't say it. Yeah, they don't communicate.
It's like from 6 years ago, and it's like, oh yeah, we've flagged this for copyright. And I'm like, wait, so it eluded your notice for 6 years, and
yeah,
now
it was
it's a
fine for
problem.
6 years, but
like, oh man. Anyways, so that's some ranting out of the way. Let's talk about something for a second that I think people, because I think you've mentioned this on either Twitter or on a interview or something like that. I might even be wrong. I might have misread this or misnoted this. MMA, you a fan?
I am a big fan of MMA, actually.
Okay,
yes.
all right, okay. Talk to me.
I mean, I'm not like
that.
I think a lot of people would still consider me like, I would consider myself an educated casual in the sense that I know all the champions, and I know who's popular right now, and I know, like, I'm into it, and I watch all the main, like, all the UFC cards whenever they have numbers and stuff. Obviously, I'm not watching every single like fight night or anything like that, but I am a big, pretty solid fan of MMA.
I was going to say, because that I don't know if anyone is all that aware about, because I don't see it referenced all that much in your videos in terms of, and then Cartman comes in like a flying Imanari, and it's like, wait, whoa, where did that come from?
Yeah, I actually did reference it in one video when I said, in the Wendy and Cartman video that I was talking about where she beats him up, I said that she's looking at him like she's the middleweight like champion, and it's that Alex Pajeda meme where he's like staring at Israel Adesanya from behind him.
Oh,
you know?
you did!
Yeah,
I do remember that.
That's the one time that I did.
Oh, okay. I think I saw the picture and I remember the reference, but I didn't glimpse the picture quick enough to be able to see who it was. So that's fair. Okay, but that's what I'm saying. Like, that's kind of like a sort of a passing reference. So I guess the question I had is, like, MMA. Like, is that something that you've been a fan of for a long time, or is that something that you've kind of developed a passion for as you've gone along? Like, talk to me about your relationship with MMA, man.
For me, it was like, so like the first, when I first really started getting into it, like actually becoming invested, was around the end of like the Khabib era, just because I got invested in that. Like, how I'm sure they gained a lot of fans was with the Khabib and Conor fight, obviously. And like when he just beat the ever living shit out of Conor, I was like, damn, this dude's different. And so that's what kind of got me into it, and I became a Khabib fan. Luckily not an annoying Khabib fan like how 90% of them are, but I was a fan of Khabib for a long time. I was sad when he retired. I watched his last fight and everything. But after that, I was just like, this is kind of sick. Like, I love this stuff. And now that I've like watched it a lot, I like it. The more you watch it, the more into it you become. Not even just because you know more about it, but it's like you also just feel like you appreciate it more, like the techniques and everything. You're like, oh, like now I kind of understand that like what they're doing here. Like, it used to be when I would watch like an exchange, I'd be like you just be like, oh my god, he hit him with a big shot. How did that even happen? But now you can watch it and be like, oh, well, I see where he set that up earlier. He was kicking low this whole time, and he goes high. It's like you start to learn more about the little like nuances about it, and I find it super interesting. And it's something that I've been into for, I guess, how long has it been now? Probably 4 years. I think something like that. However long Khabib's been retired for now, pretty much. I mean, it was a little bit before he retired, obviously, but yeah, I just find it very interesting, and I just love the personalities and the characters, and there's just nothing quite like it. I always say it's like the purest form of entertainment, because it's really just the natural human experience to want to see people fighting and beating people up. I don't know.
When I interviewed Luke Thomas, I found a quote from him, and he said something about the reason he resonates with MMA is because it's people struggling in real time with the kinds of life or death problems that are faced
definitely.
in the extremes of the world. Like, it was this thing of this is life and death being played out for entertainment, but in a way that can be palatable. And it's this problem solving versus physicality versus character versus heart versus luck versus all this other stuff. One of the things that I garnered from MMA is again sort of what you miss when you watch boxing. Because I'm not kind of like you, really. I know more than the average person. You know, if someone says, "Do you like MMA?" I'll go, "Well, you know, I like MMA," and they'll say, "Did you see that Khabib guy?" And I go, Khabib Nurmagomedov. Yeah, that guy. And it's like, okay. But one of the other things that I've garnered is an appreciation for the guys that don't get hit or the guys that don't get hurt. Because one of the things that because I train, or I try to train, is anyone can hit, anyone can throw punches. It's the guys that manage distance, that manage their gas tank, and the guys that develop techniques to be able to detect what an opponent's going to be doing. It's the nuances and the subtlety that is on a different level to boxing in a certain way, because it's the imminent threat of everything. It's not just, well, he's going to punch me. It's, if he's better at takedowns than me, he's going to be looking at taking me down, but he's going to know that I know that he's going to be taking me down, so maybe he's going to be looking for a kick or a punch. And it's this constant chess, it's this real life, in real time chess match going on at 3 different levels.
It's so heavily based on like stylistic matchups and stuff too, where like you would never, like, sure, someone in theory is better than this other person, but if they don't have the style to beat them, then it doesn't make a difference. They're still going to lose, you know? So I think that's another part that's like super interesting about it, and something 100%. that adds for another layer of like complexity.
Well, the other thing as well is that, and this is the detriment of it when it gets linked to boxing, is the boxing problem, which is 50,000 wins, 1 loss. Oh, so he's shit then. And you go, hang on, what about the 50,000 guys he beat? Well, yeah, but one guy beat him, so it must be shit. Whereas you go to MMA and it's like 17, 6, and 3, and it's like, hang on, people have beaten him. Like, right, listen, it's more nuanced than that. It's not just the fact that 6 guys beat him. It's that and there's such a rich tapestry to the sport that boxing has, but it's had it over 120, 130 years. Like, MMA has been prominent for 20, maybe. So it's crazy to think how it's evolved in that time. And like I say, to find someone else who's, like you say, like an educated casual, it's fun, because I think it's that thing where, like you, every time I watch it, I realize I know nothing about the sport. Not really. And even the guys that have been doing it for 20 years go, dude, I have no idea what this guy does. I couldn't explain to you how he does this thing. It's madness, isn't it? There's so much depth to it.
It is very interesting, and I think that I'm not really much of a sports guy. I grew up playing baseball like my whole life pretty much, and baseball is unfortunately one of the most boring sports ever to watch. Like, objectively speaking, I think most people could agree with that. It has its moments where it's super interesting, like the playoffs and stuff, but like baseball, there's a reason it's like, out of the big 3 in the US, it's probably the least popular by a long shot. So I never really was that into watching sports. I just like never got into them, but MMA kind of made me appreciate why people watch sports a lot. And I was like, okay, I get it now to some degree, like, because it's also, like you said, it's a lot of overcoming adversity and stuff too. Like, you love the stories where people overcome all the worst shit ever. And like, for example, the Leon Edwards, Kamaru Usman, the second time when he KO'd him, and like, that's like the type of shit that's a movie moment where it's like, this dude, but he did it in real life. It's like, it's so crazy. And I think MMA is the best at creating those kind of moments where, like, oh, like, this crazy shit happened that this guy was able to overcome. Like, he might have been getting beat up for 5 rounds, but it doesn't matter. He still won the fight because he just landed that shot he needed to land. And that's the type of shit that I love so much. And like, even in boxing, you don't really see that as often. Like, boxing is so like, you don't really see the big 1-punch knockouts nearly as often in boxing, besides in like heavyweight and that kind of stuff. So it's like, you don't really get those cases that often where it's like someone's getting beat up the whole time and then lands that one big shot. It's a lot less common, because they just don't carry that like power as much whenever you're have those big gloves on and everything. Obviously, it requires a lot more in boxing to finish someone like that, I feel like, most of the time. But in MMA, you can be 5'2", 130 pounds, and you throw that head kick on anyone, and that's putting their lights out. You know, that's what one thing I love about it. It's just like, it's never over. And I think a lot of sports are missing that factor where, they have comeback opportunities, but there's no like true miracle Hail Marys in those kind of in a lot of other sports in the same way.
No, I agree. In boxing, for instance, you've seen how fickle it is now with the Ngannou situation. Like, 2 weeks ago, he might be the greatest heavyweight there's ever been, and now it's, do you know, I never rated him. I don't think he's a particularly good boxer, and I think he should fuck off back to MMA. And it's like, how Whoa, slow the fuck down. Is there not a middle ground? Maybe, where he's 2 fights in, you know? Like, maybe cut the guy some slack. But it's crazy that in MMA, he had to build up, and yeah, there's some distasteful moments where maybe he has a bad performance or whatever. But like you said, it's incremental, but it's also built on these critical moments. Like, I mean, everyone remembers the uppercut on Overeem, because Overeem doesn't.
Yeah,
like
he decapitates him. Yeah,
like that's what's hilarious about this. Like, oh yeah, so you know, how do you think about that, dude? Don't remember it. Like, he sent my head into fucking orbit. I don't fucking remember that. And yet, it's that thing where he goes into boxing, has a great showing against, admittedly, you know, there's a backstory to why Tyson Fury didn't, but the fact is, the result's the result. And then within a fight, he's now, well, yeah, now he should go back to the PFL. He should, you know, earn his stripes there for a bit now. It's like, for fuck's sake, man. You're the same fuckers that if Logan Paul beats, if Jake Paul beats Tyson, you'll say, maybe he could fight Ngannou next, because you're that fucking fickle for it, you know what I mean?
I would like to say I'm a huge advocate. I think Jake Paul should fight Francis Ngannou. I think that would be a great matchup, and I think it would end very well for Jake Paul. That is my input on that.
And so the winner goes all of the prime. They get to keep all of it. That's it. Oh man, you did my heart the world of good in your cred video where you were like, yeah, the bit they should recreate is this bit, but you were like, no, I don't mean that. And there was me in the comments going, I don't. They should definitely do that. Because, dude, talk about two dudes.
That video got demonetized like instantly. Also,
oh man,
and I like to think it is because I told Logan Paul to kill himself,
dude.
Which I don't think would. I think that's fair enough, but
I mean, sorry, man, but I've held no love for those guys ever. Logan Paul specifically because of because I was in I'll never forget because I was in Australia at the time and. I've never seen a video of his, and someone who was, again, never gets offended. He's like me, South Park fan, Family Guy fan, Rick and Morty fan. We take everything in stride. Dude, this might be the most offensive thing I've seen for a while. And he sends me it, and I go, this guy is a genuine piece of shit. Like, this guy can fuck right off. And yet, look at him now. The epitome of success. My children's children will want to be like him. And I'm like, fuck. But... them's the digs, I guess. Anyway, old man yells at Cloud another day. Let's... Oh, is someone joining the bandwagon with me? Does someone want to jump on board?
No, I have no input.
No, okay.
I don't want to say anything.
Just me, old man yelling at Cloud again. Fine. Damn you, YouTube. This old man.
YouTube already did me dirty enough. I'll pass on this one.
Okay, there you go. Well, anyways, listen, let's bring it back to you. Let's bring it back to you for a second, because the other thing that is very prevalent about you is gaming. I got to ask, though, the specific thing about gaming that I want to fix on is, even though you quantified it as the greatest or the most important Flash game of all time, Pop Tropica, is that the game that you played the most? Because the thing with Flash games, children, is that some of the best Flash games were very good, but your computer's capacity to load it was somewhat compromised sometimes, especially if you were playing it in IT at school when you shouldn't have been on machines that weren't purpose-built for it. But, like, was that the game that you kept on playing, or were there other games, arcade style, that you'd be like, nah, I gotta have another go on that one, man?
I mean, I played literally, like, every, like, popular Flash game at the time, so it's like, that one was just, like, the one that I look back on it, and I'm like, this was, like, probably my favorite game, I think. Because it was just like, it's just such not a non-Flash game. It very much could have been like its own like actual game, you know, like it could have been released for like actual consoles and stuff, and it would have been successful, I feel. So that's always been my favorite Flash game, but there were so many different Flash games that I like actively played all the time. So I spent, I'd say, probably more than half of my time in school playing Flash games and not paying attention to anything going on in the class.
Did you have any exposure to... So I get pulled up on this because of how I pronounce it versus how it's supposed to be pronounced by some people. Xiao Xiao, the stickman thing. Did you have any exposure to that when you were dabbling in Flash games?
How do you spell it? Let me Google it.
So XIAO was like the... Oh. I don't know if it was like the genre, but it was definitely like a series of Flash games where it was just stick figure Matrix, basically. It was that period of time where everything had to be inspired by the Matrix or Blade, and it had Linkin Park in the background. Like,
yes,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, I remember this one. I did play this one as a kid. See, for me, this was a little bit before, but I definitely played it like a lot still. Because I played like all the super old ones as well, just because I would find these like obscure websites that weren't blocked by my school's like internet and just like try to like play as much as I could. So, yeah.
Oh man, the days when you could again, I remember this because Miniclip was a thing, Newgrounds was a thing, and then you had other ways. Mousebreaker was a thing, and then occasionally there'd be some random website that just had its own Flash game that it was just like dedicated to.
Yeah.
And then it was a case of, right, how long can we get away with playing on this site before the IT tech figures out that
figure it out, yeah,
we got to ban this one because it's like even like the BBC had Flash games at one point on their website, and the school, I would never forget this because it was like, do we ban the BBC? Because like the kids clearly aren't reading it for the fucking news; they're going on it for the Flash games. But it does have news and education on it, so they had to weigh that up. That was hilarious. But like Flash games, like, was that part of your like formal gaming education, if you want to call it, or was it something that you did because you just happened to enjoy Flash games? Like, I found that Flash games were like a genuine staple of my gaming diet back when I was younger, rather than some people who were just like, it's something to do while I'm in school, I suppose. But I used to be like, no, I really want to find more Flash games to play after playing some of these ones. I'm like, I want to follow the game producer, I want to follow the animator, I want to see what they're doing, I want to follow up with whatever else they play. Like, what was your like sort of like, how did you follow them, or was it a case where it was just kind of a fad and you phased out of it? Like, what was your experience with it?
No, yeah, I was actively searching them out at that time, especially because I was young enough to the point where my parents, like I said, they never were like they never really cared for the idea of video games all that much. They bought, the only console I had for a long time was a Nintendo DS, and obviously that's a good console, but A, you can't play that at school. B, it's like, it's only Nintendo games, so that you're limited to that. Granted, I loved it, but for a long time I only had a DS, and then eventually I got a Wii as well, and I played that a lot. But again, my parents were very cheap when it came to, there's no disrespect to them, I tell them this all the time, when it came to like buying like games and that kind of stuff. So I'd have a console, and then I'd have like 3 games for it, and like I'd have to just like play these 3 games over and over again because they never wanted to buy me new games. So yeah, I ended up playing a lot of Flash games. Specifically, mostly I would play them at school, but I also played them a lot on the family computer whenever we first got one. But my parents also tried to kick me off of that a lot, so I never really got that onto it. But I just loved Flash games in general. I would play any of them that I saw, and I would at least try them. And then there were ones that I would just like start to love, and it was always a good time. I loved Flash games so much, and it's sad that they've kind of been replaced by mobile gaming and that kind of stuff. But I mean, it was kind of inevitable, realistically.
Oh, I have a thought on that, but I have to bring it back because you've mentioned something there, and I have to stick up for your parents for a second. So they bought you legitimate, like, actual games to play on your consoles?
Well, so for the first like when I bought the Wii, it came with 1 game.
Okay.
And then they bought me 1 other one, and then I had to buy the other ones from then on.
Okay, all right. But you
I don't
had,
even remember how I got them. I think it was like birthday money and that stuff.
Okay, all right. But that's still games. Just to put into frame of, and again, I'm not saying he was cheap for doing this. I'm saying he did save a lot of fucking money. The PlayStation 2, it turned out you could chip. Same with the PS1, as it turned out. And there was I think it was Copycats or Copy Shark or something like that. And they used to burn games onto CDs that you could buy for like $1. And it was like, I remember my dad looking at the listings one day for the PlayStation 2 catalog and just going, I'll take them 10 and those 5 and those 3. And be like, oh, yay, great. Like, but then the thing that they never taught you about pirated games is that there's a voodoo dance, there's a ceremony one must perform to get the chip to fucking work and the game to load properly. And then when you want to save the game, oh, you're in for a world of trouble, kids, because then the game files get corrupted, because it turns out game developers aren't fans of you pirating their games. So I just want to illustrate the point that even though 3 games might not seem a lot, to have 3 working games I would have killed for 3 working games as a kid. Because like, you've got a whole library of games, Lorne. You've got a million things you can play. Yeah, once. Because it's not like I'm going to fucking play it over and over again if I can't save anything.
That's fair. That's a fair point. I had eventually I actually did end up like doing that with my Wii. They call it homebrewing it, which is like where you would just like basically mod it so that you could have that kind of stuff. And that wasn't until much later, but yeah, up to that point I just ended up playing a lot of Wii Sports most of the time. Was like my go-to game. I don't know why. It's like the most like non-game game ever because it's like basically just designed to be a tech demo for the Wii remote, but I just loved that game so much for like no reason.
Hey, listen, man. We all have the games that we go back to. But one of the things you mentioned there about Flash games, kind of, because you're right. The Flash game is sort of it's in the pantheon of gaming history now, rather than something that's active. I mean, look, they still exist and they're still made. I just don't think that they feature anywhere near as prominently in the consciousness. But one of the things that I have noticed, though, is that a lot of the people that would have been designing those are now designing indie games. And one of the crazy things about some of the indie games, because I reviewed them for a little bit, is that there's so many really good indie games that are lucky if they sell 10 copies. And you go, holy shit, this is good. But no one's ever going to notice it. The question I had for you is like, is that something you'd ever considered? I know that you're extremely busy, what with your full time or your daytime work, and obviously YouTube takes up a lot of your time. But in terms of like gaming experiences for someone that was like me, an avid, like I loved playing Flash, I loved finding new ones. Indie games was a good vein to tap into because it's like, wow, there's always something new. There's always a new game if I want to find something new. Is that something you considered at all?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I love, I look at indie games as like a sort of like, honestly nowadays, especially with the way that AAA games and quote unquote quadruple A games have become like so bad, like 90% of the time, it's like indie games are kind of the way to go nowadays, like weirdly enough. And I think that a lot of the best stuff comes from those areas where it's like you would never expect this like random dude making a game to make such a good game, but that's where a lot of the creativity comes from, I feel like, because they are more limited in their resources, and that means that they have to innovate on a lot of different ideas to like get it to work in the way that they want it to on such like limited resources, So I think that's where a lot of the best games come from nowadays.
Agreed, 100%. Again, I've reviewed probably 50, and I've interviewed a few game developers, and they're always such lovely dudes who just say, "Do you know what, man?
Yeah,
I kind of like, again, because you've mentioned this with the YouTube. You've mentioned I saw people doing video essays, and I thought, well, I could do that, and you give it a try, and then maybe it doesn't come off how you want. But one of the things that you mentioned in the interview that you did was the first video that you ever did, and the idea that you watched it and you went, oh man, if I could only redo it, I'd do it so differently. I did do that. I watched my first video that I ever uploaded to YouTube, and I went, Jesus fucking Christ, I can do better than this, about 2 years in. And so I did. The question I have for you is that something you ever think about doing? Do you ever think about maybe revisiting? Because I know you did with your episode listings. You reviewed some of the placements and some of the assessments you made. Is it something that you would ever toy with for your own amusement? Like the idea of, so this is where we started, but this is not how we mean to begin, children. Let's set the record straight as far as how it should have been done. Is that something you've ever toyed with at all?
It's something I thought about, and to some degree, I kind of have done it a little bit with the uncancelable video. That one is kind of the same idea as the first video I made, but it's a little different, but it's sort of the same like thesis, I think, to some degree. But it is something that I've definitely thought about, just like remaking the first video, just because I think that would be some like interesting. I think I could make it way better. But at this point, I do think to some degree it's also good to just leave it there to show people. I think it has some degree of inspiration for people, I want to say, because if like a lot of my favorite YouTubers, I would look back at their oldest videos and see like, oh wow, they've like improved so much, and I like to think that I've improved a lot. So like if you look at my oldest video, it's like literally like nothing like my current videos, and I think that that's inspiration for a lot of people to some degree, because I like to think that someone will see that and be like, you know what, his first video was dog shit, I can make a video as well. So it's like maybe I can get to the point where I'm like actually somewhat decent at making videos as well. At least that's what I hope. So that's kind of the thought I have, and that's why I've never removed any of my old videos either. Like even the non-South Park ones, I've thought about like privating them or something, but I'm like, yeah, it's probably best to just leave these up, let people like see them if they want to see them, and kind of, you know, I think it's important to have that like source of inspiration, see that I wasn't just immediately incredible at making videos, you know, like it takes practice.
No, I totally agree. I will give you one piece of advice, though, if you ever decide to get into, not that I'm suggesting you would, but again, the wide scope of things you could cover. MMA, don't put lo-fi music or any kind of low volume music in the background while you talk. Turns out MMA fans really fucking hate it. They really, really hate. I noticed it about Tommy Toehold's videos from when he did his "Let's do this shit" videos from back in the day. Is they're completely silent minus his voice, and I always hated that. But it turns out MMA fans really fucking hate it. They really don't like music in the background. It's really disorienting for them for some reason.
Why that is? That's,
dude. Yeah. Honestly, it was only mentioned in Brian Campbell, Luke Thomas, and Tommy Toehold. Every other video I've ever done with every other person is like, I barely noticed it. The MMA guys fucking... It's the #1 critique I received. In the same way that in my first ever video, the #1 critique I received was... Hang on. You need to stop doing that. Doing what? You're rocking in your chair.
Oh, yeah.
And it's really annoying. I'm like, do I do it a lot? And then you rewatch the video and go, fucking hell, mate, sit still. But you do sometimes need that piece of critique because it's something that deviates from what people want to see. And it's like, okay, well, that's kind of useful. But one other thing that I wanted to ask, and then we will draw this gracefully to a close, is you've started a new channel. You've started Blooms 2. And across Blooms and Blooms 2, what I wanted to ask is, and this might seem a bit, maybe as the kids say, it's not that deep, but I do feel like it's worth asking. What are you trying to convey with what you're making on Blooms versus what you're making on Blooms 2? Is there something different you're trying to convey across the both, or is there still kind of a universal aspect that you're going to be conveying across both of them? Like, what's the thought process behind starting a new channel?
So the new channel, I actually am gonna be uploading a video on there pretty soon. You just reminded me I have to do something, but so what the difference is really that the second channel is gonna be more just like casual. Like I said in that video, my goal is kind of just like, I want people to like just click on those videos, because some of my favorite videos nowadays that I watch are videos of people that I like just kind of talking about, you know, whatever they want to talk about, or like just chilling, like talking about this weird thing that they're into, but like not necessarily being like super produced and like having like a super like a written like script and all that kind of stuff, or even just like sort of reaction videos, not like style reaction videos that like have become so hated by everyone, but like actual like edited reaction videos, like where like I'm reacting to, like, for example, an idea I had would be like me just like watching Family Guy, for example, because a lot of people know that obviously I love South Park, and South Park notoriously has a bit of a beef with Family Guy. So I think it would be an interesting video of me just like watching Family Guy and like actually reviewing it and like giving my honest opinion on it and that kind of stuff. So that's the kind of stuff that I'm thinking about doing over there, just sort of more chill and not necessarily as serious, even though my videos I would never say are serious per se, but like not necessarily as like produced as my main channel videos are going to be.
And I guess the final question I have on that kind of segues from that to a certain degree is, do you have any people or any things that you look to for creative or intellectual inspiration? Because I think part of one of the reasons why you've done that is because, again, you've recognized that there's an audience for what you do on Blooms, but there's also your own needs, your own wants as a creator to go, I want to make stuff that speaks to this, but I also am aware I don't want to. Again, YouTube audiences like what they like. And again, it's, I mean, I've had that on other channels where I've been the other guy and someone's clicked on a video and they've gone, who's this? This is not a voice I recognize. Yeah. I must click off immediately. So you understand that the audience is going to sometimes click on something thinking it's one thing and then going, hang on, and then clicking off, even though it's, hang on, yeah, but you don't know if it's a bad or a good video. You haven't watched it. Give it a chance. Whereas on a new channel, there's every reason they would do that. But do you have people or things that you look to from an intellectual perspective that gives you that kind of inspiration, or creative individuals or things that you go, do you know what? It would be nice to be able to convey this about me while not compromising what I do now, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of YouTubers that kind of do what I'm like kind of trying to do, and that's like, for example, the first example I think of, he's one of my favorite current content creators. It's Meat Canyon. He makes like animations on YouTube. He's like one of my favorite like animators of all time.
Yeah, he's associated with the Flash Kits
And
guys as well, isn't he? He does stuff with them occasionally.
yeah, so it's like he makes these like crazy animations, but like he started a second channel a while ago where he just kind of just like talks about stuff, and ironically it's something that I've been wanting to do for a very long time, even before like he's kind of moved in a direction of things that I wanted to do in the first place. So I think it's kind of funny that he ended up doing that exact thing. And it's more just like chill, like he just sits there and talks about like these weird like things that happened, like stories. Like one that he just did was he just talks about black metal, which is like Norwegian, like this like crazy like genre of music where there's like a lot of crime associated with it and that kind of stuff. And it's obviously something that he is very interested in, and he made me interested in it, just him talking about it. And that's the kind of stuff I want to do, where I can just talk about that, but it's like in a less formatted like format, I guess. That didn't really make sense, but you get what I'm trying to say, where it's just like kind of chill and I can just chat about it instead of like reading from or anything like that, you know. And I can just like get people into whatever I want to talk about, and like kind of make it more about like people are coming to just like hear me talk about stuff, because I think I have at least some talent in making people care about stuff that maybe they wouldn't have cared about otherwise, you know.
100% agree. And again, one of the things that because I'm a bit of a sleuth when it comes to my interviews. I like getting to the ground level of someone before I talk to them, because I think it's useful to know the kind of person that you're looking to talk to rather than just making assumptions. And I've always, again, when I saw that update video and I saw I'm rambling on and you were only 5 minutes in, that really endeared you to me, because it's me going, oh, you sweet someone, you think 5 minutes is rambling? Oh man, welcome to the world of live streaming, baby, where you got to go for 2, sometimes 3 hours, and then chastise people at the end if they haven't contributed to you by sending you money, because that's something you got to get used to. I only just qualified for monetization recently, as far as having supers or whatever, and I'm still deeply uncomfortable with that prospect. I'm like, dude, please don't make me ask people for money. Please don't make me do it, because I'm just grateful for the attention, quite frankly. So the fact that you have this thing in the back of your mind that thinks, if I'm gonna talk, I better have something I care about first. Like, that's great. That's the best starting point, because the other thing you then go to, like you said, is I'm gonna start with something I'm passionate about, but I'm gonna try and give you a reason to care about it before the end. I'm not just gonna talk about it because it's hot, it's popular, it's whatever. It's, no, I care, and I want you to care. And so long as you tune in, I promise I will give you at least some reason to care before all is said and done. I think you'll go far with that, man. I really do. And again, it's that thing of just finding the cadence of that voice and how it, you know, dude, I'm looking forward to it. Like, when I found the second channel, I'm like, right, cool. This is maybe where we get to see that aspect of you. Because there's still, even in the Q&A videos, there's still some, you know, there's the pre-produced aspect to it, but then there's still a lot of your sort of on the fly flavor, where you're sort of the one that stands out to me is the guy that wanted the shout out, and you were like, do you know what, fuck it, I'll give you a shout out, but the rest of you, don't you try it. I'm gonna let you, because it's, again, it's just that little cheeky part of you that you don't get to see in the annotations that you make. And I gotta tell you, man, I'm excited about that, because again, this is what's crazy, and I'll end on this, because I don't know if people can really appreciate the gravity of this. 59 videos and over 50 million views. Now, I'm not saying that the ratio in of itself is impressive. What I'm saying is the time frame of that is super impressive, considering the content that you make. Like, it's so impressive to see, and you really do give this old man hope that there's a future for this kind of content on YouTube when you make it as well as you do and with as much passion as you do. So, to kind of, before we wrap up properly, I just kind of want to say thank you, in effect, by saying sort of, well, dude, what you do is what I'm hopeful more people do with YouTube and what it represents while it's here. I don't know if people realize what a golden era of interaction we have as people who would have never otherwise been in the entertainment industry. Like you or me. Would we have ever made it onto television 30 years ago? Would we have made it onto fucking radio 50 years ago?
For sure would not have.
You know what I mean? Like, it wouldn't happen. Yeah. Especially then you get to TV and you go, so what were you looking to do? Video essays on a popular television show. Well,
yeah.
I mean, we could do that. Or we have a dating show where people stand topless next to a pool and they push each other in. It's so fun. Like, isn't it crazy that we get to do this? Isn't that? I mean, I know I've been harping on, and it's been a bit negative, but isn't it great that we get to do YouTube? Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, it is something I think about often because, like you said, I do think about that where it's like this is like such a unique period where there's so much stuff that people didn't even know that they wanted until people started doing it, you know, and I feel like you said, something like that, the stuff I do would never existed previously. And even channels that do documentary style things, like obviously documentaries have existed, but not to the same, about the same, who the hell, you watch a documentary about the most random, video game speedrunner of all time, and you're just like, who would ever care about this? And yet this guy just got me to watch a 4-hour video about it, and it has 5 million views, so we got that many people to watch it. It's like this would never have existed ever, because who would ever think that this topic is going to be something people care about? But people do care about it, and that's the crazy part about YouTube, I feel like, is that it just allows everyone to have something that they never thought they would even care about, that they can care about to a degree with such a large community around them as well. I think and it allows the same people to make content about it. Like, who would ever have watched my videos about South Park? They'd be like, I would have just, let me just watch the show. Like, why would I watch this guy talk about South Park back in the day? Whereas now people understand that, maybe he has something at least somewhat interesting to say that I can try to listen to. So I think it's such an interesting time.
I think you do, and I think, again, to not to blow too much smoke up your backside, I think the other thing that you do is you make things sound simple when they're not. I think whenever I've watched videos of yours and I've listened to the way you've broken things down, or you've analyzed things, or you've added additional context, or you've done the extra research to say this is what this means, and da-da-da-da-da, that's so important in an age where people, that's trustworthiness you're building there, my friend. And that's something that is an ever reducing commodity when the age does not care. I saw 30 TikToks last week, each of them. One guy was trying to tell people that push-ups don't work your chest muscles. Word. And even if 10% of the people that watch that fucking video watch it, they are dumber for it. And yet there you are, busting a goddamn gut to try and just make something you want to stand behind from an editor. And again, I mean it when I say thank you, because genuinely, that kind of content, I think, is what's going to stay the course. I think once fads subside, having the kind of evergreen content that someone can watch 10 years from now, and it'll still have the exact same educational, entertainment, and intellectual quality and consistency, and what they can derive from it, that's what's going to keep content creation alive. So, man, just fucking keep doing your thing, man. Thank you so much for doing your thing and doing it so well. Not just coming in and doing it sort of shittily and then fucking off to do TikTok. Thank you, man, honestly.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, I'll do my best. That's a lot of praise. I'll try to keep up and do more, I guess. I don't know. I'm sound like a
grizzled content general here, sending a soldier into feel like, listen, son, you gotta do this for content creators everywhere, man. But listen, let me wrap this up, because again, you've got a million things to do. The questions that everyone apparently needs to know is, where can people find you? Where can they subscribe to you? Where can they follow you? Where can they buy your t-shirts? Perhaps you have a beverage or a book you'd like to plug. Maybe you've got a biography coming out on Netflix that you need to make people aware of. I don't know. You're the YouTuber. You take it from here.
All right, so you can find me youtube.com/LoganPaul. You can buy my drink. It's going to be Prime out in all the stores. You're going to find it out there. It's really tasty. Highly recommend you check it out. Other than that, yeah, that's it. No, I'm kidding. I'm Blooms. You can find me on YouTube at Blooms. Actually, my ad is Bloomser with an ER, but just look up Blooms, you'll find me. I make videos about South Park. If you haven't figured that out by now, I have a Twitter. You can just find the link in the description of any of my videos. And yeah.
If this guy, I'm talking to the audience now. When this guy unleashes his sense of humor, we're all in trouble, man. Like, this guy's such a funny fucker when he wants to be. Honestly, thank you so much, man. I'm gonna wrap it here because again, but honestly, man, thank you so much. That was amazing.
Oh wait, I have one more thing I want to say real quick.
It's my show. I get to say when it. No, of course, go ahead. Sorry.
It's just a little piece of advice for anyone that wants to like maybe make YouTube videos and stuff, and it's something that I think about a lot, and it's something I always want to say whenever I come on this kind of stuff. And it's really just, like I said, obviously passion is the most important part of this, so make videos about stuff you're interested in. But when I say that, I also mean make videos that you would watch. So if you're not making videos that like you yourself would be interested in or click on, then that's how you burn out like immediately, because like what is even the point, you know? I think about it as I'm making videos that if I saw this video on YouTube and it was like popped up in my recommended, I would click on this video, you know? So I think that's my most important piece of advice, because I get asked all the time, you know, what does it take to make YouTube videos? That's really the #1 thing in my opinion. Just make videos that you would watch, and then that I think you'll find that a lot of people think the same way that you do. So that's really all I wanted to say with that.